All right, Chair Anderson, we are all set when you're ready. All right, welcome back from lunch, everybody. I believe our next agenda item is to start discussion about our next vaccine protocol, which is the hepatitis B containing vaccines protocol. And I'm going to turn the time over to Staff Member Runyon.
Staff Member Runyon, welcome back from lunch, everyone. And we're going to open up mailing A3, which is our protocol for hepatitis B containing vaccines. This one should be pretty quick and easy. We got some feedback about potential confusion on some verbiage with a lot of these vaccines. You'll see in table, the first table underneath 3, and let me go ahead and share the screen as well. Sometimes if you look at the ACIP guidelines, you'll see minimum acceptable spacing or CDC guidelines. And then other times, if you look at the package insert or prescribing information, and you'll see recommended spacing. So in this one, we just needed to make sure that we referenced the appropriate primary source, which we hadn't done correctly. Just a moment. Okay, Staff Member Runyon, it's like I'm sharing the screen appropriately now. So just to note that we're making that distinction, included in the parentheses here, see prescribing information for recommended spacing. I can reword that or take the quotations out if you want, but if I'm not mistaken, we use that in maybe in some other instances, not. So yeah, it is another way of determining whether or not a vaccine is appropriate and within what window of time, but it is different. So here, I changed some of the references to the appropriate piece of primary literature, whether it's the CDC or the prescribing information. And then I just changed all of them to minimal acceptable spacing, as opposed to, I believe previously it was the recommended spacing that was listed, but it was actually the minimum acceptable spacing that it described. If that makes sense. Any questions on that before we move forward? That one's fairly straightforward. Okay. On. Underneath 5, the first table, catch up pediatric hepatitis B vaccine schedule. Dose number 2, just to keep it consistent with the verbiage we had in dose number 3. We just had 4 weeks here. We had 8 weeks after dose 2 in the next one. So just to keep that consistent, I just wrote after dose 1 there. And then next, under the Twinrix accelerated schedule, let's look at dose 3. So dose 3 can actually be given 21 to 30 days after dose 1. So if we calculate that, we had previously had it, the minimum acceptable spacing is 11 months after dose 3. But since there's a 1 week window there between the min and the max acceptable, then it may not necessarily be exactly 11 months after dose 3, but it is 12 months after dose 1. So I changed that just so it's consistent with current recommendations to allow for that disparity between 21 to 30 days. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it wasn't accurate. Any questions on that? Okay, no questions on that. We changed the corresponding reference, of course, and added one at the bottom. Outside of that, I believe that's it for this one. Any questions, or do we have a motion, or?
I don't have any questions. Anybody else? Okay, if no questions, is there a motion to move to recommend the hepatitis B containing vaccines statewide drug therapy management protocol version 11 of 2024 as revised today to the Oregon Board of Pharmacy for review?
Committee Member Myers, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Committee Member Gibler, second.
Fabulous. Committee Member Anderson says yes. Committee Member Gibler?
Aye.
Committee Member Myers?
Aye.
Committee Member Sellers?
Aye.
And Committee Member Virgin?
Aye.
Thank you. This motion passes. All right, we will now review and discuss the proposed amendments to the meningococcal containing vaccines protocol, and turning the time back over to Staff Member Runyon.
All right, Staff Member Runyon, we have mailing A4, which is the protocol for meningococcal containing vaccines. First update references the majority of the work done on this one, and I've just included the verbiage. It's actually part of the ACIP updates recently, where they're just unifying the dosing schedule and between the Bexsero here and then the Trumenba with it. And so there's previously a dosing disparity. As you can see, I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom. So previously, for example, zoom in a little for you. Let's see, for children and adults, 11 to 23, for example, and we have the Bexsero here. It's 2 doses, 1 month apart, but that's been changed. And then the Trumenba was the 2 doses at 0 to 6 months. So that dosing schedule has been unified. Same for this dosing schedule. So for persons with persistent complement deficiencies, for example, again, the interval used to be different. And the Bexsero was 2 doses, 1 month, greater than or equal to 1 month apart. It's changed. And the Trumenba was a 3-dose schedule at 0, then 1 to 2, and then 6 months. So copy that verbiage, which is represented in the update we have up top. The other question I have before we move on is, how long should we keep these what's new on here? Just opening it up for your consideration. The Menactra has been removed for a little while, and while these things still hold true, just not sure what your opinion is on the necessity of keeping them or not. And this isn't a 19-page protocol, so I don't know if that weighs in any way in your decision, but.
This is Committee Member Gibler. What's new, as I interpreted it, is what's new with this recent version of the protocol. So we need to erase any any old updates from the what's new section when it's been reviewed again by the PFAC and approved by Board of Pharmacy. Sorry, I said that as a statement. That's my opinion.
This is Committee Member Anderson. I would agree with that. So keep A and B, get rid of those. Yep, perfect.
I do have a general question though, because the draft that we have does not have this new A and B listed. So when do you, when you send out the drafts for us to review versus like this one that we're reviewing now, it would be nice to have the one that we're going to be reviewing in the meeting. Even if it's, unless these are just very minor changes. Seems like the COVID protocol too, there's just some changes that were made that makes it a little bit harder for me in the meeting to look at the version that I have versus what we're looking at on the screen.
Staff Member Runyon, I agree with that 100%. This was actually part of the ACIP update from the October 23rd, 24th meeting that wasn't published until I think it was the day after we actually noticed this. Maybe the Monday after you got the mailing. So this information that we're looking at here wasn't available at the time that we sent the mailing out, which is why it wasn't included.
And so you're only able to you're not able to give us, when you put in a situation like this, give us the most updated version even a day or two after the you send it out to us? Is that because of public law around the drafts that are presented to all licensees in the agenda? Or I'm just
Staff Member
just a
Melvin,
question on that.
Committee Member Gimbler, we can do that. It would just we would have to renotice the meeting. So unfortunately, yes, we do our best to try to give you the items and the public that are available to us in real time for our board meetings and our PFAC meetings. We typically provide the materials 2 weeks prior to the meeting. So sometimes it lines up, Andrew, and sometimes it doesn't, but we do try really hard. There's just a lot of moving pieces. So on the back end of this, though, the public will see all of the work that you have suggested today will be in the meeting summary. So the public and all of you will be able to see that right on our website.
I see. The real reason I was asking is just because I like to. It's nice if I can review the things that were reviewed in the meeting, but I understand why that's not the case in here. All right, thank you.
Staff Member Runyon, I'll go ahead and read those in the What's New section since the public wouldn't have been able to see that either, those amendments. So the Bexsero is to be administered as a 2-dose series at 0 and 6 months when given to healthy adolescents and young adults aged 16 to 23 years, based on shared clinical decision-making for the prevention of serogroup B meningococcal disease. And then B, we have Bexsero to be administered as a 3-dose series at 0, 1 to 2, at 6 months, when given to persons aged greater than or equal to 10 years at increased risk for serogroup B meningococcal disease. That is persons with anatomic or functional asplenia, component deficiencies, complement inhibitor use, microbiologists routinely exposed to Neisseria meningitidis isolates, and persons at increased risks during an outbreak. And Staff Member Runyon, Andrew, we did make a note of that, or made a mental note of the dash for the ages too. So I'll do kind of a reconnaissance mission and go through all of the protocols that we have up this time for that, as I agree with that recommendation. Okay, and then we'll move on. The next amendment here is just based off some feedback that we had gotten that it wasn't necessarily explicit enough that the MinVO is not for individuals greater than or equal to 56 years of age. And it was implied in some of the wording, but it wasn't explicitly listed. So we had a request to include that. And there's a little background on there as well, which I believe you would have gotten as part of the initial mailing as to why that was important and the conditions that precipitated that request, created a little context for it. Any questions on that?
The context is very helpful. Thank you.
And then let's move to the MinB vaccines scheduled for healthy persons, dose and route table. And so this just puts into table what we had spelled out at the top under A and B in terms of the unified spacing of the vaccine schedules based on the individual or underlying conditions. So you have the 2-dose series here for both of them now. It's 0 and 6 months. And then you have the 3-dose series for high-risk persons as stratified above, 0, 1 to 2, and then 6 months after dose 1. Any questions on that? Okay, if there are none, just move down. Same with all of the other ones. We just updated some references here, and this will not be included in the protocol itself. And the reference is right here. Again, even though it says August 29th, it takes you to the CDC page as highlighted earlier that actually has the updates from the committee's most recent meeting, October 23rd and 24th. If there are no questions, we have a motion for this one.
Committee Member Gibler, I have a question about, it was just a little too fast for me there at the end. Below the scheduled, it's under section 4. So I want to be consistent with our protocols. So we've got the licensed vaccines, which informational only, I guess. I don't know what I don't know if we necessarily, I'd be interested to know if that's necessary, followed by the all the excipients ingredients in the following table. And then, let's see, recommendations for use. If that's, Staff Member Runyon, redundant as one considered for the COVID vaccines, I'd be interested to know if your thoughts on that. And then the contraindications, you have the vaccine with all the excipients as well. I'm just looking for consistency between the vaccine protocols to shorten these up. And if those were considered when you were looking at this protocol. And if not, then let's not do it. Let's not make any changes now. But for the future, I want to consider that.
Staff Member Runyon, I agree. It wasn't considered when I did this particular protocol. I did the COVID one, I believe, after this one. And so I guess one of the factors, not necessarily knowing how that would be received, it would have taken a lot of additional time for this particular protocol or to unify all of them in that way, not necessarily knowing if that would be a direction in which the committee would want to head. So I can certainly keep that in mind henceforth, so that, as you're saying, there is a greater degree of consistency between all of the protocols. I think that would make it easier for the end user It would also make it
Right.
easier for the committee to review and for us to amend.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. No changes then today, but next time we review this, maybe that could be a redundancy again, could be considered for these protocols.
Okay, I
Committee
think we just
member
need
Sellers.
a motion and we can move on. Or,
Sellers, hand up.
Sorry, committee member Sellers. So, is it a huge change to get rid of, say, at least the excipient information and the storage and handling? Because I think those are the two sections that we really. I don't know, from a liability standpoint, I think it was mentioned on the COVID vaccines. I guess they'd be more unlikely to change it with this group, but does removing storage and handling and the excipients really cause a big kerfuffle?
I mean, no, not to me, but I was going to defer to staff member Runyon just since he was doing the complete review.
That's true. Yeah.
I think he has a better understanding than I do about these kind of details in the protocol, since that wasn't my focus in reviewing. But yes, absolutely, I agree with you.
If it's too big of a lift, I mean, it's great as is. Like, it's great. So.
Stephanie Marunion, I could certainly do it by November 27th. It wouldn't be something I feel comfortable doing in real time just because of these additional considerations or other considerations. I'd want to make sure they're represented adequately in the charts above. I could certainly do that before then. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it right now. And as you'll notice, these charts, for example, are a lot less, they're not as exhaustive as the charts that you saw in the COVID protocol, for example. So I do feel that there is likely some information that is not represented here and is not duplicative, therefore, that is present in text below, but I'd be happy to compare those and then excise any of the redundant components.
Is that the date the Board of Pharmacy would review these? Is that why you mentioned that date?
Staff member Melvin, I was just going to mention that. So when he said November 27th, so what happens next in our process is Gary has to get these ready for prime time after you vote on everything today. Then we have to notice the December board meeting for the public and our board. So if the committee is giving Gary the directive to do the best he can and clean it up if applicable, does that sound agreeable? And that's what he was saying. I think he can commit to look at this before we provide it to the board next on the 27th. Does that make sense, Committee Member Gribbler?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. If there's no concerns or questions in his review, to go ahead and make those cuts. And if there's any question whatsoever, just leave it in there and we'll take a look at it next time. The goal is just to remove redundancy.
Yeah, this is committee member Anderson. I like that too.
And obviously the storage and handling and the excipients are not redundant, but those, because we considered those in the COVID protocol and remove those, I would suggest that we give staff member Runyon the directive to remove those unless there's concern that any concern on their end of removing those.
Staffman Runyon, thank you for that. Okay.
Back to Lorinda.
And Lorinda, it's back to you.
All right, do we have a motion to move to recommend the meningococcal containing vaccine statewide drug therapy management protocol version 11 of 2024 as revised today to the Oregon Board of Pharmacy for review?
Any member give us some move.
Do I have a second?
Committee Member Myers, second.
Thank you. So Committee Member Anderson, aye. Committee Member Gibler,
Aye.
Committee Member Myers,
Aye.
Committee Member Sellers,
Aye.
and Committee Member Virgin.
Aye.
All right, this motion passes. All right, on to pneumococcal. So we will now review and discuss proposed amendments to the pneumococcal vaccine protocol with Staff Member Runyon. I believe this is your A5 document from email.
Staffman Runyon, that's correct. Mailing A5 protocol for pneumococcal vaccines. Just one, I'll share the screen. Staffman Runyon, so this is an additional protocol that was included in the ACIP updates that we were not privy to prior to noticing this meeting. So this will include, unfortunately, a few edits that weren't included in the mailing that you had. We, appreciate the feedback on, any future instance where there's such a disparity and, considering the timing of that and considering what we can do to, to bridge that, to give you more time to review it as well. So here we have two things, two overarching and pretty major or substantive changes in that we have a new vaccine. I believe it was approved in June of this year, 2024, the Capvaxive, and it's going to be for the package insert or prescribing information. It's approved for 18 and up. But in terms of the ACIP recommendations, we have that listed for 19 and up who currently have a recommendation to receive a dose of PCV. So that's what we've included in A under what's new, and then under B in what's new. And this is the part that recently came out subsequent to the November or the October meeting, rather. And it's the ACIP recommends pneumococcal conjugate vaccine or PCV for all PCV naive adults aged 50 and older. So this is a drop from the previous bracket of 65 and older. So in terms of the changes, even though this is substantive and represents a pretty big shift in increasing the, patient population by a considerable margin that would be eligible for this vaccine, in terms of the overall amendments to the protocol, isn't that significant. I think the majority of the amendments come from Nancy Petrosky, where she's including the language centered around the Capvaxive, and that's all part of the mailing. So there should be very little that you weren't privy to or that wasn't included in the initial mailing, and I've highlighted that for you here. So we'll go down to
Committee Member Gibler, just on what's new, A. Do you think there's a viable reason to have that note that says PI says 18 years of age or older?
Staffman Runyon, no. I was going to get rid of that because the ACIP does recommend, and I believe that's what we typically would follow in this instance, And there are several instances where, COVID vaccine, for example, may be approved for 6 months and up. However, we don't adopt that and it's outside of the statutory authority or scope. That's not the case here, but the ACIP may recommend a different age range than what you'll find in other pieces of primary literature. So no, this will be removed.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And then under 3, the vaccine schedule. And you can see here at the time that she did this review, there was not enough information to make the updates that I just alluded to. They were considering even earlier in the year reducing the age restriction from 65, that lower threshold from 65 to 50. And that was part of the recent update. So you'll see that included here. So all of the highlighted areas are where I just dropped the 65 years to greater than or equal to 50. And then I added the reference for the routine schedule there as well. Again, it was part of that October 23rd, 24th meeting. And here's where it's discussed that, there were robust discussions about it. They're going to meet in October, but she didn't have that information. And again, it just came out. So I made those changes here. Any questions about those in that first table? If not, we'll move forward to table B, which is special conditions schedule. And initially, there wasn't a reference given for this, so I had to look for that. And you'll notice this, again, is an instance very akin to what we just discussed, Andrew, where there was a difference between the package insert prescribing information or the FDA approved age range and what we have on our protocol. If you look, this is approved for children 6 through 18. But of course, because of the statutory restrictions, we would only authorize our pharmacists to vaccinate for ages 7 through 18. And again, I'll make sure that that's a through and not a dash for you. So we've updated that here and then just included the reference, which was absent. Other than that, there wasn't anything substantive that changed on that table. And moving further down, and nothing changed here other than the reference. And so that puts us at the table about pneumococcal vaccines for persons 19 now through 49 with immunocompromising conditions. So again, instead of this being 19 through 64, it's now 19 through 49. We made that change on the left-hand side, this column to reflect that as well. And then at the bottom, because it's changed, once the patients are 50 years and older now, then they will, once they reach that threshold, they'll be referred to review the regular recommendations and pneumococcal vaccine recommendations for that age range, which you've covered above. And then on the table directly below that, 19 through 49 years of age with chronic conditions, same thing. We've just made the adjustments to the age. And then again, change this from 65, which is the old threshold, to now 50 years up.
Committee member Myers, channeling committee member Gibbler, I'm seeing a whole bunch of dashes between the age ranges. For consistency, are we doing 2 and 3 with those, or is that?
That's staff member Runyon. As discussed earlier, if it pleases committee, I'd be happy replacing all of those with through. if that's what you'd like to do, if that's more clear. I think
I
using
think
the
that was
find
my
and-
understanding. And my understanding was that you would do that for us if that's, I mean, I heard you mention that you would look through these documents. So if you don't mind that, we would appreciate it. Speaking on behalf of me.
Yeah, Staff Member Run, that was what I tried to communicate. Perhaps I didn't do a good enough job of being explicit about that, but yeah, on all of the mailings that we have today that are open, I would go through, with your suggestions and replace all of those. I think it would be a fairly minor change or easy to do using the find and replace function in Word. So I think it wouldn't take as long as it probably seems that it would. So I'm happy to do that.
I'm sorry, I did not pick up that you were meaning to do that for each of the documents. My bad.
Thank you for the suggestion again. It takes us down to table 4. Again, keeping consistent with the previous recommendations for these, complementary or ancillary, if not extraneous fields. Is there any concern about reducing this or taking it out altogether in a similar manner? Because here we have the vaccine components, a presentation. For the majority of these, they're only present one way. A lot of these are pre-filled. They don't come in a multi-dose vial. That's the only way they're made. So, it may be unnecessary to include that information. It's just based on your discretion there.
I just don't, Committee Member Gibler, I'm not sure if pharmacists utilize this table as their go-to table to find this information. It would be the prescribing information. Perhaps thimerosal just as a quick look, but that's what Control F is for when you're looking at a PDF of prescribing information. So I'd be fine with this removing some of this information as much as the other committee members would like.
Committee member Sellers, I agree with member Gibler.
Staff Member Runyon, I will take that note and do that work as well, just to maintain that consistency between the protocols. I would also include that offer in the recommendations for use. So before the 27th, that you give me a sufficient amount of time to do the same with this as I've done or, would do with the other two, just making sure that, we're not excising or taking out any clinically relevant information, only the redundancies between what we have in text and what's represented in the charts above. I'd be happy to do that for the recommendations for use as well. Including, I think we renamed that in the COVID protocol. I'll unify those laterally or between protocols if you like.
Thank you.
And here we have still under 5 recommendations for use. In G, Nancy had mentioned that at the time she made this review, the shared clinical decision-making information or that verbiage wasn't present. But that's one of the, I believe, 4 or 5 vaccines now where they offer that as a decision-making tool or model. So this is now included in there, so we can keep the language there.
What was the language can you remind me what language we use in the protocols for shared decision making in order that we change to alleviate kind of the subjectivity to it, or to help pharmacists feel more comfortable with that language and what it actually means?
Staff member, and I don't recall that may have been a little before my time in terms of us changing that if we did in any way.
Yeah. It was when I first came on, so probably a year and a half. I don't know, staff member Anderson, if that rings a bell.
Staff member Runyon, I know.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, if committee member Anderson, sorry, if she remembers that language or our discussion around that, or committee member Myers. Anyway, it's.
Yeah, this committee member Anderson, I do remember those conversations. This was something in ACIP guidelines, if I remember correctly, like they talk about it. So I think we left it in because that was literally a thing that ACIP talks about. And so I think what we had recommended maybe was to have a link to maybe that language in ACIP.
Yeah, I think it was a link or some sort of guidance for pharmacists.
Yeah, to have a link to this.
Yeah, staff member Runyon, I do recall it was part of the overall clinical pathway with the first rollout of the RSV vaccine. I'm not sure whether that was in our protocols or not, because I think we were using OHAs at that time. Would have been the fall of 2023. But I know because for that age range of 60 to 74, where there wasn't a routine recommendation for everyone that had a particular underlying health condition, that it was, again, part of that shared clinical decision making, and that would potentially, make someone eligible for a vaccine that may not have otherwise been.
Terminology is not. Is there different terminology maybe?
Staff member Efremof's looking through all of the protocols at our disposal, and we're not finding any alternative
HPV has one
language except for.
Okay, sorry, staff member Efremoff. It looks like there's just a bullet point on the HPV vaccine that says shared clinical decision making regarding HPV vaccinations is recommended for some adults aged 27 to 45 who are not adequately vaccinated. And it says see section 5 for guidance. I don't know if you were inconsistent in calling them all out in a specific way. This predates that. That's just recommendations for use section.
Okay. That sounds appropriate. I think the board, staff, and OHA were getting questions from pharmacists about what that means, perhaps with the old OHA protocols, and we had made attempts to just clarify that a little bit. And so if it's clear, maybe it's clear now and we're fine. I don't want this to be a project that is something that I know we had discussed at length earlier.
Step member Efmoff, just one other point too, later in that it does define like shared clinical decision making refers to an individually based vaccine recommendation informed by a decision making process between the healthcare provider and the patient or parent or guardian. I'm not sure this is just the exact language that is in the ACIPs. Does it actually like call out what a shared clinical decision is and we just copy and paste in the protocols? Just curious, that might be. But if the committee agrees with how it was done previously, we can just mirror that also for consistency. Or however you would like. There's other.
Did we like cut and paste? Is that what you're saying, Brianna?
It kind of
So-
appears like, yeah.
So we took what information was in the hyperlink and cut and pasted into the protocol? Is that what we did?
You know what, do you maybe even want to pull up the HPV one? You guys could just.
Or I can pull up the version that was
Yeah.
permanently adopted was in
It's on the
February of
website.
2024. It's in our rulemaking. Give me just a second.
And if you just put control line clinical decision making, you can get
So
the
like,
lay of the land.
hold on just a second.
You do remember this being a conversation for a while too. That's why it just.
So permanent, it first went permanent 2 of 2024. That's the version I have.
I just went to the website HPV human. Well,
Oh, I didn't know if you were looking for HPV. I was looking for this. Hang on.
it's not. Sorry, if you go back to the protocol page,
That's where I just was.
it's not under HPV. It's under. Sorry. I mean HPV, but scroll down.
Okay.
You're looking for the current one that's on the books today?
Yep, if you go just a little further down,
Yes.
further down. Human. There you go.
Yes, but this, they were looking for a version from the very first. that we
You just did.
adopted. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can control that.
Yep.
Shared clinical.
So what we did here is we added that to the appendix, the CDC guidance on shared decision making, clinical decision making. It looks like it's just trying to get rid of the ambiguity around what questions people were having using this particular protocol. But I think the language we used here was helpful because we stopped getting the questions.
This committee member Anderson. So yeah, I would agree. I think if this is what we did for HPV, that we try to keep that similar in this one.
And we do it in the meningococcal too, same thing,
Yeah, that's the one that we're talking about right now,
right?
like how to incorporate this same idea.
We do, I guess it's in the appendix on this one too. Oops, I'm looking the wrong one. Oh yeah. I'm just talking to myself. This is a committee member Gibbler. Is anyone talking here?
This is committee member Anderson. I was kind of curious too. Are
I
we
just want to make
moving along with the edits?
sure you're not all on mute.
Hit mute by accident. Unfortunately, staff member Runyon may have hit mute.
Oh.
Let's,
We're all sitting here in
He's driving
silence.
too fast. Sorry. Thank you for letting us know. You may need to restate. Or
Yes, sorry. We saw you like futzing with the document and going on to new things. It seemed like that.
Staff member Runyon, I promise I'm not that awkward. All right, staff member Runyon, I was just making a couple of comments about, let's see, not sure where we left off. The special conditions. I don't think there's a lot of duplicative information here. I'll take a look if you'd like, keeping consistency between this and what we're doing with other protocols. I'd be happy to get rid of anything that's present in the tables, but I believe this is a lot of very specific information for certain patient subpopulations that's not present in the tables above. Same thing here. And a lot of these marks were where Nancy had made additional references, and then she added the PCV 21 or the Capvaxive that's new. You can see all those changes here where that's exactly what she's done. And then what I was saying in number 6, it seems to be in line with the overall trend to in keeping these protocols a little more simplistic. So the contraindication section, for example, does not have any formulation specific information. So this is very similar to what we created for the COVID protocol. We got rid of a lot of the extraneous information. The same thing for the warnings and precautions section here. And this is just another instance I highlighted where, if we take a look at this recommendation, it's also present. I'm going to scroll up pretty quickly. It's also present in the first box, I believe. Yeah. So, it talks about the PPSV and the necessity to get one based off the age range, which is really one of the things we're covering here. So if that's applicable, I'm happy to access that part as well. Keeping consistent with what we're doing for the rest of the protocols. It seems like some of this other information though is not covered elsewhere. So the pregnancy, lactation, simultaneous administration or co-administration of other vaccines, etc. So I'll, of course, keep all of the information that's novel in the section. And that takes us to one of the last sections, number 9, the side effects and adverse reactions. I think fever, for example, is not included in the list of reactions for PCV21, or maybe it's vomiting. It's one or the other. But because this is kind of a more comprehensive table covering the potential side effects that were recorded from any of these in that family, I felt comfortable leaving it. And even though if you look at the PCV21, for example, I mean, the incidence of all of these is going to vary between the vaccines. So I felt comfortable leaving that because it is a potential side effect of one of these vaccines in the group. I think if any additional information is needed, again, that's going to be present in prescribing information. So I didn't feel a need to take that out, but I'm of course open to your suggestions to hear what you think about that, whether it's a necessity to remove it, change it. What I wouldn't want to do necessarily is create an entirely different column for this, because if we do it for that, then we'll have 3 additional tables, and I think that's in opposition to what we're trying to accomplish here.
What are we trying to accomplish with side effect tables in general?
Yeah, I was curious of that too. Like, what if we really just, I don't know, there's supposed to give patients vaccine information sheets, right? And this kind of stuff would be on it. So I guess I'm just saying, like, refer to the VIS. That's
Committee member Sellers agrees. Get rid of the table.
I mean, I was thinking that with all the vaccine tables, but
yes,
we don't do that with our medications that we're prescribing. And just having a range of up to 76%. I mean, it's just not useful information for me to be informed when. I mean, I'm not using this to counsel people. I'm using it to follow eligibility criteria. Vaccination.
Staff and running, I agree with that. Let's move to 10, storage and handling. Are there any suggestions to keep this consistent with the previous protocols that we've made amendments to or plan to? And just referring to the most recent prescribing information, taking out this table.
Yeah, this is Committee Member Anderson, I agree.
Okay, that takes us to 11. Really, the only changes here are to the references. And again, per previous recommendations, we can add any references to the shared clinical decision making that need to be added at the bottom in 11 there. I'll make sure that's updated appropriately. Are there any other suggestions or questions outside of that?
This Committee Member Anderson, I don't. Anyone else? All right, do I have a motion to move to recommend the pneumococcal vaccine statewide drug therapy management protocol version 11 of 2024 as revised today to the Oregon Board of Pharmacy for review?
Committee Member Gibler, so moved.
I have a
Committee
second.
Member Myers, second.
Thank you. So the roll call, Committee Member Anderson, aye. Committee Member Gibler,
Aye.
Committee Member Myers,
Aye.
Committee Member Sellers,
Aye.
and Committee Member Virgin.
Aye.
Thank you. This motion passes. All right, we will now move on to, I believe, our final one for RSV. So the respiratory syncytial virus version 11 of 2024. I believe it's A6 of your packet from your email. Turn the time over to staff member Runyon.
Staff Member Onion, are you glad? I think that's the last time you might have to say that today. Yeah. I see a thumbs up on the screen somewhere. Andrew, is that a thumbs up? Yeah, I see.
Thumbs up. Gary's a lot shorter.
Staff Member Onion, this is the quickest update of them all. Save the best for last. Really, we might have one other thing to do based off the general direction of other vaccine or other protocols taken today. But this amendment was just made in response to some suggestions we got or feedback from the formulary inbox about the presentation, that it may not have been consistent with or have included the quote unquote ActiVial presentation. But it's only made by the one manufacturer. So that's a suggestion we got, and I changed that. It's just a copy and paste from the prescribing information. However, if keeping in line with what we've done for the previous protocols, we don't see any necessity or utility in keeping this. I'm happy to cut that entire thing out as well.
Yeah, this is Committee Member Gibler. It's just a good example of kind of the confusion that causes when we have these. So removing it gives you less emails, hopefully in the future.
And I think initially one of the reasons that we brought this forth was because there was some speculation that the ACIP may have voted to reduce the age range for routine recommendations to below 60. And they did not do that. And there's no indication that they did that or entertained that. Even though some of the vaccines, for example, I think the Mresvia is FDA approved for 50 and up, if I'm not mistaken. So there was some speculation that that could be changed, but it was not changed. So it's another reason that this is brought forth. So there are no further changes outside of what we intend to do in terms of removing that section. Any questions on that? And then of course I'll get rid of this at the bottom.
Staff member Runyon, I think what you will also consider, I'm assuming, is looking at some of these sections like vaccine components under the contraindications and side effect profile, things like that.
Staff member Runyon, correct. Would you like me to review all of the protocols to discern whether or not there are any side effect profiles, quote unquote, that we may have missed today? I feel like we got all of them, but I'm happy to go through and look at the contraindications, remove any vaccine specific or formulation specific information. Part 2 of that would be removing any side effects information. Part 3, consistent amongst the protocols, would be just looking for that duplicative information that's in text that's also simultaneously represented by the preceding tables that tend to be at the top of the protocol. So those are a few things. I guess number 4, replacing all of the dashes with through and making sure that language is unified. Yeah, those are things that I was planning to do for all of the protocols that were open. Is that the direction that we wanted to head in, or do we have consensus for that?
Yeah, for the vaccines protocols we reviewed today, would be my recommendation, with appreciation.
Yep, I would agree as well. This committee member Anderson.
Okay. And staff member Runyon, I think we just need a motion for the protocol itself, and we can wrap this part up.
All right, so is there a motion to move to recommend the respiratory syncytial virus vaccine statewide drug therapy management protocol version 11 of 2024 as revised today to the Oregon Board of Pharmacy for review?
Committee member Gibler, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Committee member Sellers, second.
Fabulous. We'll do roll call. So committee member Anderson, aye. Committee member Gibler.
Aye.
Committee member Myers.
Aye.
Committee member Sellers.
Aye.
And committee member Virgin.
Aye.
Great, this motion passes. All right, we are at the end of our agenda. So I am not quite sure if there is anybody there for public comment, but that's at this time. Do you know, Rachel?
Sorry, staff member Melvin, nobody signed up to provide public comment today.
All right, so this piece is not applicable. All right, we are going to move to the end. Do I have a motion to move to adjourn our meeting at 1:43 p.m.? Wow, nice job, guys.
Committee member
moved.
Sellers motions to adjourn. Sorry.
Go ahead. I'll second then, committee member Gibler.
All right, so roll call. Committee member Anderson, aye. And committee member Gibler.
Aye.
Committee member Myers.
Aye.
Committee member Sellers.
Aye.
And committee member Virgin.
Aye.
All right, passes. We are adjourned at 1:43.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
so much.
Thank you.